She thought he was just a quiet, unassuming man who volunteered at her school. She had no idea who he really was, the world he came from, or the secrets he carried in his silence. To the world, Luca was a shadow, a name whispered in fear. He was the head of a notorious crime family, a man whose hands were stained with the kind of red that never washes out. His life was a carefully constructed fortress of power, intimidation, and violence. But to her, Maria, he was just a man. A man who showed up at the school, helping with odd jobs, his presence a quiet mystery she found herself drawn to. Maria was a teacher, one of those rare souls who saw the world not for what it was, but for what it could be. She believed in second chances, in redemption, and in the inherent goodness she was convinced lay hidden in everyone. Her classroom was a sanctuary, a place of hope, and she extended that same warmth to the quiet volunteer who seemed to carry the weight of the world on his shoulders. She didn't know that Luca wasn't there to find goodness. He was there to hide. He was seeking refuge from a rival faction, a temporary escape from the constant threat of betrayal and death that defined his existence. He expected to lay low, to be invisible. He never expected her. Maria's kindness was a force he was utterly unprepared for. It disarmed him more effectively than any weapon ever could. She would bring him coffee, ask about his day, and share stories about her students. She didn't see a dangerous man. She saw a lonely one. She spoke to him not as a monster, but as a human being. She talked about her dreams of traveling, her passion for literature, and the simple joys of seeing a child learn to read. For the first time in his life, someone saw past the feared Mafia boss and looked at the man underneath. And in the light of her gentle gaze, something inside him began to shift. He found himself looking forward to the stolen moments at the school, to the sound of her laughter echoing in the hallways. He fell first, and he fell hard. It was a dizzying, terrifying freefall from which he had no desire to be saved. The peace, however, was a fragile illusion, destined to shatter. The truth eventually came out, as it always does. The whispers from his world finally reached hers. Maria discovered who Luca really was, the crimes he'd orchestrated, the empire he commanded, the fear his name inspired. The man she had shared coffee and conversations with was a phantom. The reality was a nightmare. The revelation was devastating. Heartbroken and terrified, she did the only thing she could think of. She tried to run. She tried to put as much distance as possible between her simple, hopeful world and his dark, violent one. She packed her bags ready to disappear, to forget the quiet man who was anything but. But Luca made a choice that stunned everyone, both in his world and in hers. He refused to let her go, not by force, not by threats, but by making the ultimate sacrifice. Faced with the choice between his kingdom of darkness and the woman who was his light, he didn't hesitate. He began to systematically dismantle the empire he had spent his life building. He walked away from the power, the money, the loyalty that had been forged in blood and fear. He turned in his most trusted associates, exposing the network of crime he once commanded. He severed every tie to his past, effectively signing his own death warrant in the eyes of his former allies and enemies alike. He walked away from the life, leaving behind a legacy of fear to chase a future of hope. The underworld was in chaos. His enemies celebrated, his allies cursed his name. They called it weakness. They said the formidable boss had been brought to his knees by a simple schoolteacher. They sneered at the idea that love had made him soft, that it had broken him. But Luca knew the truth. This wasn't weakness. It was the greatest show of strength he had ever displayed. He hadn't been broken, he had been rebuilt. Love had accomplished what bullets and blades never could. It hadn't destroyed him. It had redeemed him. It reached into the darkest parts of his soul and showed him a different way to live, a different man he could be. It was a brutal, painful transformation. But for the chance to be worthy of Maria's love, it was a price he was willing to pay. He had traded an empire for a chance at a normal life, a throne of fear for a quiet home. For him, it was the only deal that had ever truly mattered. The question remains, can love really change a monster? Can it wash away the sins of the past and pave the way for a new beginning? Or are some shadows just too dark to ever fully escape? Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more.